Good morning. Hi, it's Stacy, and this is Walking in My Shoes, and we are loving my veteran. Going to be a great episode today. It is probably the episode I need the most help with. So, just going to give everybody a second. I am actually on time, which is a miracle. I'm sure these people are like, "Wow, she's on time today." Good morning, everybody. So before we get too busy, let me just tell you tonight, do not forget, we do Let's Talk. Have a lot of fun. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I will put the link up in just a minute when we're done with this so we can all see this going forward. Please, everybody, we are encouraging you. We need those VA stories so we can get them to the independent researcher as quickly as possible. Good, bad, indifferent. If you've had an issue, a success with the VA, we'd really like to see them as well. A few other great things. Good morning, Aaron. Hey, baby. And I need to get with you when we're done about doing our thing, so just message me what time works for you. I know, no coffee cup. I had to get up early and take the dog to the vet, so I've had coffee like way too much. And Carl's in the other room, so he doesn't know I need more. So it's all good. Few things coming up that we need to talk about. Michelle and I have cut episode 2 of our podcast, so it should air by the end of February. Anybody who would like to be on one, we're going to have this so it can go mobile in the car as well with you while you're riding down the road, cleaning house, whatever. We'll have a podcast available. Super excited. That'll be a once a week deal. So we have release dates coming up to promote that. Anybody who needs the VA letter to get out to their friends, family, whatever, I have that. So I can actually put that in the file. So if you guys want to share that with everybody, it would be greatly appreciated. Today, we've talked a little bit about what a healthy relationship looks like last week. And then we went over what makes a relationship toxic. So before we put all these pieces together, we need to talk about how to fight fair. And this is for me because I am the worst at fighting fair. And I'm sure Carl will tell you, let me turn my phone off, I forget. I am horrible at fighting fair. So that is just something we have to address because every relationship people fight in, they disagree. It is okay to disagree. It is okay not to agree on everything. You are individuals. So understand it is very okay not to agree. It is okay to get into an argument. People will do that. It happens. But how do you get from where you don't agree and you're going to explode into getting into where you can discuss it and have a positive outcome? It may not be the outcome you want, but it needs to become a positive outcome in this. Morning, Stephanie. So the first thing is in fighting fair is you have to focus on the issue at hand. That means one item. Whatever is the issue of the disagreement, you need to focus on that and not bring everything else into it. So if you're discussing, and I'll give you an example, Carl is famous for saying, I screwed up. I fucked up. And it is getting old, okay? It's getting like on my nerves old. Well, when we were going to discuss that, because he said it to me one time too many, and I was like, I'm just done listening to it, okay? And it made me mad because he doesn't screw up. He's amazing. Don't tell him I said that. It just kind of went from there. And then as the conversation progressed, the argument progressed, it was throwing up every single thing I could bring up because he disagreed with this and I disagreed with that. And then it became like emptying the rotten garbage in the floor. Okay, we can't do that. I cannot do that. I do it all the time. It is my issue. And Carl will say, he does this to me. Turn it. You're twisting it. You're twisting it. You're twisting it. And I get mad because I'm thinking, oh, he's saying me that I'm turning it around to twist it, and it's not being truthful. Okay, but that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that I'm twisting it from the issue. We need to stay on task. We need to stay on that issue. That is a huge thing. Talk about the issue, the single issue. Then you have some options when you talk about that single issue. You can come to a mutual agreement, a mutual disagreement, or you can agree to disagree. So you're going to have whatever the issue was, you're going to agree to make the change together, agree not to do it, or agree to disagree. This needs to be done. He doesn't think it needs to be done. That's okay. We respect each other. I'm going to do my thing. You kind of do yours. And it's okay to be that way. It's okay to disagree. We all come with different baggage. We all come with different values. We all come with different stuff. I love cauliflower. I can't make him eat it. Okay, it doesn't work that way. Good morning, Roxy. It doesn't make him want to eat it. And I can't get mad because he doesn't want to eat cauliflower. Okay, it's just one of those things that we just can't do. So that is where I'm talking about agreeing to disagree. The other thing is when you have a disagreement, when something comes up, if you are already in this fighting situation where you know you're going to butt heads, if it is not critical, don't discuss it at the present moment. Just say, I need some space. I'm listening to you, but I'm not where we can talk about it like adults. Can we come back to this? And that's where Nakia puts the stop sign up. Can we come back to this later? What about if he apologizes for getting upset when I try to apologize and explain why I was upset? He tells me that I'm trying to start. They do. Okay, we're going to get through that, Erica. That will probably be as we go further down into the thing. We just got to kind of lay some ground rules, but they do it. Okay, because I think part of it is that brokenness that they have. So anything that goes wrong, it's like, I'm sorry. Carl will start out a conversation with, I'm sorry. I'm like, what the hell? We haven't even said anything. How can you be sorry before we ever say anything? You know, I'm sorry. What can I do? I'm like, stop. Okay. And that drives me crazy, drives me nuts. So stop apologizing for things you haven't even done yet or said yet. And then you're right, when they have this thing, Erica, and we laugh about it, it's like the old, and you're young, so you probably need to go Google Lamb Chop, the song that never ends, and it just goes on and on and on and on, and they talk about their thing on and on and on, and then when you apologize and you try to talk about how you feel, then it becomes this argument. But we're going to get to part of that today, and the rest of it we'll really dig into, because there's a way around a lot of that. You have to respect each other. Okay? You cannot sit here and say, you're dumb, you're this, you're that. When you have that disrespect that we have, I've been drinking blue Kool-Aid, now you can see it. Good, I hope it's stuck in all y'all's heads because we do it all the time. But when we have disrespect for each other, everything goes out the window. Everything goes out the window. And again, when you respect them, over time, that respect will come back. But we don't always do that. And let me tell you, this is my story. I am not proud of this story. This is probably mine and Carl's biggest arguments stem from this. Early into our relationship, we moved into my apartment. And so when we would get into it, my answer was, just leave. Pack your shit and get out of my house. Right? So what did that do for him? He didn't feel like it was our home. It was my house. So I used to say that all the time. Just effing leave. And it wasn't even nice. Okay, so I didn't even say effing. It was ugly. Get out. Go. Get out. I'm done. Get out. Okay, well, I didn't necessarily want him to leave. What I wanted was I didn't want to fight anymore. I didn't know how to say it. I didn't know how to communicate. He was pissing me off. And I wanted to be in control, which was never good because it was going to be my way. And it was my house, my way, my everything. Well, as that started to go on, it put doubts about it being my house. And so then when things would go on, like the dog would get in the bed, I'd look at him and I'd go, Opie, get out of my bed. And Carl would be, when we weren't even fighting, he'd be like, your bed? And I'd say to them, get out of my kitchen, right? And so all of a sudden, I didn't realize that I was prefacing that this was mine and he was a visitor. Even when we moved into the houses together, it was my, and women do that, you know, it's like our house where we nest kind of stuff. So it became, get out of my house. And then that little seed always showed that disrespect. So when I get mad at the dog, and we have a puppy, and so he'll occasionally have potty on the floor, I'm like, what'd you do on Mama's floor? Did you pee on my floor? And I'm talking to the puppy, right? Like, did you pee on my floor? And when I said my floor, hey baby, make me another cup of coffee, please. Thank you, love you. Get the coffee resolved, Nakia. So when I said my floor, my bed, my this, my that, where's he supposed to fit in? And I did that. And so every time we had an argument, it became, well, it's your house, it's your this. And I was the one who screwed up. So it didn't help the fighting fair when you set ground rules and that little thing stays in the back of their head all the time. So that's really kind of important in the fighting fair because it's going to come back up. And it's going to take a long time to get over. Don't argue over things you can't change. I know that we'll be arguing, and not necessarily us, but a lot of people are like, well, you need to go to the VA and you need to get help. Well, the VA is not seeing anybody half the time. I mean, we just had a girl post today that her husband reached out to the VA because he was ready for help, and they're like, nope, sorry, can't see you right now. I know that Michelle's fighting that issue with Damon. It's been 5 months since Damon first started this journey, and they still don't have it straight. 5 months later, so come on. Don't argue about things you can't change. If you don't have, if you guys don't have the income because somebody can't work, out of work, like, you know, y'all know my situation, you don't have that. Why are you going to argue about money you don't have if you don't have it? Because you're not going to find a way to get it. So why argue about something you can't change? Don't argue about things you can't change. I can't change his past. He can't change my past. And you know, we find a lot of times that we're arguing over our past and past things. And I'll look at him and I'll be like, I'm not your ex-wife. And he'll look at me and say, I'm not Woody. And we're arguing over stuff that we can't change. I can't change that I was married to Woody. He can't change that he was married to his ex-wife. We can't change that. It happened. You can't argue over things you can't change. But I do it. When we get into it, I get the garbage bag with the most rotten trash on the planet, and I throw it out. Not only is stuff spewing out of my mouth, but y'all, I'm like taking the trash and shaking the nasty trash on the floor. I bring up everything. And he'll tell you that. I bring up everything. That's how I fight. And it's horrible. And I'm learning that because then you look at them when you're done and you see the hurt in their eyes, and then you're like, wait a minute, I think I instilled part of that. Okay, but you just don't think about it. When you're going to talk to people about an argument, about something you disagree on, if you go in with the concept and you're like, well, you never take the trash out, you never make the bed, you never do the laundry, you never help me around here, you never get off the TV, you never do whatever, what has that done? What has that done? If somebody came to you and said, Nakia, you don't cook a good dinner, which she knows. I mean, she doesn't cook, so I'm just going to pick on her, right? You don't cook a good dinner, and you're not doing this right, and you're not doing that right, and I don't like the way you're taking care of these, and you're not doing this. How are you going to feel? You're already going to feel defeated before you ever start. And aren't you so much better off to go in and say, hun, I feel this way when this happens. Who's taking ownership for how you feel? He can't control how I feel. He can't control how I take things. And there were times that I wanted to like smack the shit out of him because he'd look at me and say, I can't help the way you take it. And I'm like, what? And he'd say, God would say to me, that's on you. I can't help the way you're taking it. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, hold on. I'm reading Erica's. Hers is kind of long. And she says that I find being silent and saying, okay, I'm sorry, keeps things more calm rather than confronting him when he feels he was right. His actions instead of talking about what happened and trying to work on it. Mm-hmm. Then he uses the apology in the future instead of it was my fault, or I know it, or I wouldn't apologize, and I honestly try not to argue. I try not to trigger. He's a combat veteran, disabled. I'm going to tell you right now, okay? You cannot, Erica, you got to address things. And Carl will be the first one to tell you, the absolute first one to tell you, they're either going to get mad or they're not going to get mad. Okay? You're not going to know until you say it. But when you don't confront issues,
it's going to sit and dwell.
It gets like, and we've talked about a bubble and a space of our own protection. When you don't confront issues, they turn into like this big, ugly, boily cyst that Dr. Pimple Popper has to come and pop. Okay? So you have to talk about it. You have to put that out there at some point. You need to stop doing that. You need to tell them how you feel. But don't say, you do this to me. It needs to be, I feel this way. You can agree to disagree. And the time when you're arguing or when he is triggered is absolutely not the time to try to have a conversation. Absolutely not the time to have a conversation. When he's triggered and you're exploding because you get this way, we all get this way, and you were like this, you might as well talk to the wall. Okay, so you have to find that time to talk. And Erica, if you need some one-on-one to talk through what you're going through, you just message me and we'll set up a one-on-one Zoom and we'll talk about some of your stuff and how to get you on that path. But you absolutely have to set boundaries. And I thought when I started looking at that, I was like, y'all people are crazy. I just don't want to trigger him. I don't want to see something flying across my room anymore. I don't want to see another piece of glass broken in a picture frame. I don't want to have the outrage anymore. I'm done. But you know what the strange thing was? When I started setting boundaries and I looked at him and I said, you're not going to throw another thing in this house. Okay? You're not going to throw another thing in this house. And I set those boundaries. We don't do it anymore. We don't do it anymore. Now, we might slap our hand on the counter because I did it the other night. We might do this stuff. Yeah. That, Erica, him arguing with you for days is, and please don't be offended by what I'm saying. People take the path of least resistance. So if you haven't had boundaries up and you haven't established your boundaries, and we're going to teach you how to do it one boundary at a time, okay? But if you've never had boundaries, they're going to take the path of least resistance. So they'll argue for days because you allow that to happen, okay? How about we do this? Erica, are you good for when this is over, let's just go to a chat room on the page? Because I just think that's easier, and most of us are here, so we can just pop to that and everybody will be in that little chat room. If you've got time for that, I think that works really well. So always use those statements like I feel this, or I heard you say this. Okay, I hear you saying this. And what happens is that when you clarify this, when you clarify and say, I I do this, I hear this. Now, maybe their delivery was wrong, and so what you're doing is, without realizing it to them, you are teaching them how to give you a better delivery. Okay? Learning boundaries is hard. And look, y'all have no idea. No idea. I've said this before. Our bathroom door, the other half, it was barely hanging on. I think we had a piece here because when Carl got mad, rather than hit me or do anything else, and we kind of said this is the place you can go. After he put the first hole in it, he put holes in the bathroom door. You couldn't have company over because the whole world could see you pee. We don't do that anymore. We've gotten past that. We don't do that anymore. And yes, we still argue. Yes, we still disagree, but we are catching ourselves from getting to this blown up fiasco that we have. I still spew venom. I'm working on that. I don't spew as much. And I probably only take 3-day-old food out of the trash and drop it in the middle of the floor instead of 10-day-old food. Okay, so it happens. Don't drag old arguments into the mix. They will try to. We will do it. Don't do it. Stay on the argument at hand. Whatever your issue is, deal with that. If it's a multiple facet issue, deal with one part of it first and then get back to the other. I said to Nakia, I'm sure it was her I was talking to the other day, y'all think I'm kidding. Back in the old days, when you watch the old movies and whatever, when you're watching those movies, they'll give the radio command and then they'll go over. That was literally because when they did radios then didn't have this where you can just go two-way. You literally had to flip a switch to transmit and flip a switch to receive. And when they said over, it meant you flipped it the other way, so you're now listening. Okay? We literally sat there one day, Carl and I said, okay, because I would cut him off. Like he would say something and I would cut him off, or I would say something and he would cut me off. We literally use the over concept. When you're done saying, because a lot of times I'll say stuff and I'll pause for a minute to get my head right, or I'm just getting old and I'll lose my train of thought, but I'll pause for a minute and I'm not done getting it all out. And he'd interrupt, or he would do that to me and I'd interrupt. So we literally did over. It's just one of those things. So it is very important that we learn that fighting fair means don't bring up old garbage. Okay? Don't bring up old trash. The past is in the past. And when Carl and I got into it, not last night, night before last night was beautiful, just so y'all know. My victory days, I have them. Keep writing your victory cards. For those of you who knew, we do victory cards. It's amazing. Take your little index card, write your victory on them. I used to stick them on the wall. I don't do it anymore. I put them in a file box because you could have wallpapered my house with them. But what happens is when you do this, and you got to leave the past in the past, or you never go forward. You have to leave the past in the past. I am too. The power of vulnerability. I am so going to watch that. I'll put a link on where we can watch it on the page because I just think I'm that. So you can't drag those old arguments in. This is the hardest part, y'all. Right? This is going to be incredibly hard. You have to be willing to forgive. Okay? He may have cut you. Oh, victory card, Erica, this is it. So what I do is I take these cute little index cards here. Oh, I've got crap written all over them. But I take these cute little index cards You can use a sticky note, whatever, but nothing any bigger than this. What I found, Erica, is that when you say I've had a good day or I've had a bad day, you define your whole day by the 8,000 some odd seconds that are in a day. We don't need to do that. When you're trying to dig out and feel like you're not drowning anymore, if you take every time something good happens and you write it on a card, okay? I used to hang them on the wall with tape, but you could plaster my wall in them. And it was kind of cool when I hung them on the wall because Carl would see what I saw as victories. He didn't point it didn't make him feel negative. It made him see that I was looking for the positive. Well, now I have so many of them, and he kind of said something about wallpaper in the house and them, that I put them in an index box or in a stack on my desk, and I'll flip through them every so often. And then when we're having a bad day and I feel like I'm going backwards, I go through these index cards and I look at all the victories we've accomplished. And so it really helps me stay focused on the positive instead of drowning in the negative. So that's what I do with the victory card. I love it. It is the simple way for me just to know. And I encourage you to write down your victories. Whether you write them down in your phone in a note, whether you write them down on a note card, whether you put them on a piece of paper, but when you physically write out the victory, you start seeing that things are not as bad as you get in your head. It really does help you. But this willing to forgive part, when you resolve something, you're either going to agree that it's not good for you, or agree to disagree. Whatever that final decision is on that issue at that moment, you've got to do that and leave it there. Okay, so the next time an issue comes up, you can't go back in and say, well, yesterday I gave in. Or yesterday we did. You've got to forgive that behavior and go on. And you can't, if like in your case where you were talking about that right now he's arguing over everything and everything is your fault, when the first time that he doesn't and you start writing, there you go. Marriage counseling appointment, yes, it's a victory. Write it down. Anything they do that is a victory. No, you're good, honey. You're good. You can interrupt us. This is what we do. Anything that is a victory, we write down. But you got to be willing to forgive the past. You can't keep that bottled up inside of you. And the biggest example goes back to when I used to say to Carl, get out of my house. Okay? So he still brings that up. And I finally looked at him and I said, we got to get over this. There has to be a new starting point. We need to start leaving that in the past. Because if you don't, it's just like bringing the muck back up in the nasty trash can. You have to leave it in the past and move on. You can't go back and say, well, you hurt me 6 weeks ago and throw that up. And I do it. I am the worst about bringing up the past of anybody. Okay? The worst. I am the worst about doing it. So you have to stop doing that. You have to forgive. Doesn't mean you have to forget, because we learn from our mistakes. We learn where we've been. We've learned from what we did. But you got to be willing to forgive and go on. You don't have to forget it, but you have to forgive it and move on. Because if you don't forgive, resentment builds up. When resentment and anger build up, resentment turns to anger, and anger turns to hate. And then where are you in your relationship? Negativity breeds negativity. Like when you put something in the fridge and you forget it and how long it doesn't take it long to get fuzzy. Like you're growing your own penicillin cultures. Well, that's what happens when you let stuff fester in your relationships. That's about fighting fair. All of these things are accomplishing what we want. We have an issue. We need to talk about it. We need to resolve it, and we need to move on from it. Now, which way makes the most sense? To do it systematically and calmly, or to sit there and scream at each other? How much do you think is going to get done? Because when you scream at each other, guess what you're going to reach for? The trash bag of rotten food. That's what you're going to reach for. When you do it in a calming manner, you're still going to get, and you may not, this is critical, you may not be able to resolve it in the middle of what's going on. You may have to take a break for a minute and calm down and get your head in a place that's clear. Because if we're worked up and they're worked up, we're never going to be able to talk calmly. It's just the way it is. And this isn't necessarily a PTSD thing. This is a relationship thing. This is the biggest problem with PTSD. Yes, they have PTSD. Yes, they trigger. Yes, it affects our relationship. But you know what we end up doing most of the time? We end up creating no boundaries, having zero boundaries, and take the path of least resistance because we don't want to trigger that PTSD moment. So now PTSD controls our relationship. We have to go back to making it about our relationship and let PTSD sit where it sits. Yeah, the last issues are in the past and you can't affect your present. It is true, and it is hard to remind yourself. And there are days I have to go sit out on the back porch and think about it. And there are days that, y'all, the shower, Michelle sent me that, I was so excited. She sent me this thing because the shower is my place. I'll get in the shower and I'll wash all the yuck down. And there'll be times that Carla and I'll get in an argument and I'm like, I need a minute, and I will go get naked and get in the shower. And I'm not talking to you when I'm naked in the shower, and I let all that nonsense wash away, and then we can have a personal thing. Yeah, when you dig up dead people into your fight, they did. If the subject is over, it's gone. You don't revive. Look, I was a paramedic. You don't revive the dead. Dead is dead. You got to leave it there. You got to leave it there. You don't have to forget it, but you got to leave it there. So I hope this helped. I hope we understand this, and we're going to get off of here, and I'm going to go into, it'll be Stacy's chat room because it won't let me do it as Loving My Veteran. I'm going to the group, and I am going to create a chat room where we can go in there and talk, so we can talk about this subject further. Do not forget, let's talk tonight. Come on. Sometimes we always have at least one veteran. I know that Carl will be there. I'm sure that Lane will be there. Jeremy is moving, so he said he will not be there tonight. Erica, are you in the group or just on the page? If you're in the group, it will be in the group. Okay? When you're in the group, it'll just pop up that Stacy's having a chat room, and it usually shows up at the top. So you can just pop right into that. Michelle is challenged. Yeah, it's going to be on the group and not on the main page because it won't let us do it on the main page, I don't think. It won't let me do it on the main page. I can try it. But if we do it in the group, then other people don't come in. All right, so if you're in go to the group, it'll have, when you're on the main page, it'll click the button to let you in the group. Just go into the group and it'll go to a chat room in the group. So I'm going to do that. This is going to be the one in Facebook, Nakia, on the Facebook Loving My Veteran with PTSD group instead of the Zoom because it's just easier. Anybody else need anything? Yeah, if you're on the page, babe, there's just a little button. Click it, and it'll let you go. Senny, you always there. And besides, you looked like last time you was at the doctor or at the chiropractor getting thing. You look like you was in the Silence of the Lambs. I'm just saying. So, all right, y'all. This has been a great episode. We've had, get some stuff. Nakia, you're always in the group. It's the page you post ponder points. I love her. She's so silly. Anyway, I'm Stacy. This has been Loving My Veteran, and we're walking in our shoes. Bye.